You've been working in this area for a number of years. Could you just tell us the story of how you first got involved working in school choice? And I really want to hear the fund students, not systems story.
Mhm.
So, how did that become a thing? I
Mhm.
know that this is something I saw you tweeting out quite a bit, probably in 2020. And it was a day in, day out, constant messaging by Corey DeAngelis on the strategy and what we should be doing to really do right
Mhm.
by our American families. So, if you could just tell us that story, I've never heard it.
Yeah, it's actually pretty funny. At one point, I actually started all of this as an academic at the University of Arkansas doing my PhD in education policy. I've done about 40 peer-reviewed journal articles on school choice and other education policy areas. And some of my colleagues were telling me, get off Twitter, you're wasting your time. You could be doing more important stuff like writing these 50-page papers that nobody ever reads. I'm glad I didn't listen to them. One of those colleagues actually went to Twitter a little more recently, and I never went to him about this and said, "Oh, I'm glad I didn't listen to you." But he said that he had given me this advice a long time ago because he thought I was trying to be well liked in academic circles, and that. But he went to Twitter to say that he's. It looks like Corey wanted to be influential, so I'm glad that it actually worked out for him. So maybe my advice wasn't all that great a long time ago to begin with, but anyway, my school choice journey started at the K through 12 level. I actually went to government run schools all through K through 12. And by the way, if you want to check out some of the problems in the government school system, you can look at one of my recent books with Connor Boyack. It's called Mediocrity: 40 Ways Government Schools Are Failing Today's Students. But I talk about my story in one of my new books as well, that I went to my assigned government school until high school. I went to something called a magnet school. And this is a form of school choice. I'd say one of the weakest forms of school choice. Maybe you can call it government school choice, where you can choose your school. You're not assigned to it. They can have their admissions processes that they want, but it has to be a school that's run by the district or the government. And even then, it was a night and day difference for me. It was a huge benefit. I thought it was a great opportunity academically, obviously. And it was on the campus of my assigned government school, where there were fights every day. There was drug and gang activity, and there wasn't a lot of those problems in the magnet school. And so seeing that right before my eyes for 4 years straight had a profound impact on me and my ideas about the school system. But it also set me up for success later on in life as well. So I think other families should have opportunities in education, but it shouldn't be limited to schools that are run by the government. The money should follow the student to wherever best meets their needs. If that's another magnet school, fine. If it's a charter school, fine. But if it's a private or Catholic school or other religious school, you should be able to choose that too, and the money should follow the student. And then I went off to do my PhD in education policy after I did a couple degrees in economics. And at Arkansas, I really got into school choice research. My first study linking the Milwaukee voucher program to crime reduction later on in life.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of the first studies on the topic. I've done 2 of them linking school choice to crime reduction so far. There are 6 total on the topic. It's a very niche area of research, mostly because it's hard to get criminal record information. It's it's really hard to get long-term data on students associated with using this program in high school. And we found huge reductions in crime. All 6 of the studies on the topic now are peer reviewed, and they all find large reductions in crime associated with using school choice. And that could be for a variety of reasons. It could be peer effects. You're around another group of students that's less likely to be involved in gang activity, so then you'll be less likely to be involved in gang activity. It could be because the private schools operate in a competitive market where they have a stronger incentive to compete on a lot of different things, including test scores, but also things like character development of the student. And then the other obvious explanation is, well, the private sector can have religious schools, and religion can have a profound impact on the moral compass of a student growing up, making them less likely to be involved. There's a whole bunch of reasons why that could happen, but that really got me interested even more in the topic. And I've done tons of studies on the topic, mostly focusing on outcomes that are not standardized tests, which really ties into what's been happening over the past couple of years. Parents seeing these other dimensions of school quality beyond test scores. Most researchers liked to just look at what's available, and test scores are the easiest things to find. So they don't go digging much, or they don't have as much success looking at things like crime or mental health. It's a lot harder to do those studies that I've partaken in. And then the second part of your question about fund students, not systems. I've repeated those 4 words more than I can count. It would be fun to go look at how many times I've tweeted that out. But the reason I thought it was so important to reframe the debate, which a lot of this is about controlling language. And if you can control the language in a policy debate and you can do something in sound bites, well, the politicians are going to like it and the people are going to like it. And if you can put the other side on defense, which has been really hard in the school choice movement for a long time, supporters of school choice were on defense, trying to explain to people why we should have the right to choose the school for our own kids just because they weren't the status quo. So it makes it a lot harder for the school choice proponents. But the very nature of saying fund students, not systems, as opposed to school choice is beneficial in 2 ways. At least 2 ways. One, well, it's more transparent. It makes the idea a lot clear. It's the funding following the student. You're funding the student, not the building. They can choose wherever they want to go. So you don't have to explain it as much. And then it also puts the other side on defense. If I say fund students, not systems, and you want to argue with me, the burden of proof on you is now on you to explain why we should fund the system and not the student. And it really goes to show that you're not really concerned about the student as much as you are maintaining the monopolistic institution. So that's really changed the game, those 4 simple words. And then it also allows you to bring up analogies that point out the hypocrisy of school choice opponents, in that a lot of people who vote against school choice, Democrats in particular in elected office, they support funding students for higher education when it comes to Pell Grants and the GI Bill. You can take the money to Catholic universities if you want, or you can take it to the public university. The funding follows the student. In Texas, we have the Texas Equalization Grant. That's so-called public dollars. I call them taxpayer dollars, but that could be used at private religious institutions. You can think about pre-K programs that the Democrats often support in office. And that's public money, taxpayer dollars, that can follow the decision of the family to any provider of their choosing, even religious providers for pre-K. For food stamps, the funding follows the individual. You can take it to private institutions as well. With Medicaid vouchers, you can take that money to Catholic religious hospitals if you want, and so on and so forth. All these programs. And so if you ask, well, and their main talking point for a long time from the teachers unions was public money, public schools. That was their 4 words. And the quick response to that is, well, you support public money for private everything else. What's the difference here? And then they'll stop in their tracks like a deer in the headlights because they really hadn't considered it before that. Well, yeah, actually I'm a hypocrite because I support public funds going to private everything else, just not for K through 12. And the reason there is that it's one of power dynamics. Choice is the norm for higher ed and pre-K and everything else, but choice threatens an entrenched special interest, the unions, only when it comes to K through 12 education.